Welcome to Real Women's Stories. Today we are talking women's hormones, our clock ticking, that time bomb going off.
My overwhelming thing, and this is what I said to the lady at the time, was that it just felt quite unfair. Some people obviously have, babies just constantly, things just happen. And then I sort of thought, because I'm trying to go about things in essentially the right way, and not rush into having babies or doing something for the wrong reasons. I'm trying to do things correctly, in a sense. I'm having to lose all this money, go through all this.
This episode is really about how we can take control back of our lives, because although our body clock might be ticking, there are certain things that we can do. There are options that we have in the world out there today that necessarily we might not have had 20 years ago.
There was something with Jennifer Aniston. I saw something, and she basically was talking about her fertility and the fact that she hadn't had kids and things. And she said something along the lines of, "Oh, I wish someone had shaken me when I was 33 and said, freeze your eggs. You might regret not doing it, but I can't imagine you'd ever regret doing it."
This is Real Women's Stories. Today's guest is a very dear friend of mine who I worked with over the last 8 years. And Kat kindly agreed to be on our podcast for our very first series when I was starting this podcast. However, I didn't know that Kat had been on a really personal journey pre that interview. And it only came out recently because I think I asked her a question of, Kat, if you had the option of freezing your eggs, what choice would you make? And it's a conversation that has sparked off the topic of this episode. So we're just going to dive straight into this one. Kat came on to one of my very first episodes when I launched Real Women's Stories, and she came over and stayed at me, and we recorded in my snug, and we really delved into the topic of being childless, which we now call or reframe it as child-free. And we had a real good natter over a nice glass of wine. It was the summer, it was all nice and relaxed, and we really sort of unpicked that whole controversy of, being in a situation where you've chosen a career, you've chosen not to get into a toxic relationship, you've chosen to wait. And, if everyone's off having their babies and getting married, you're going to let them do them and you're going to do you. And unbeknown to me, my friend, you you decided to do something which I think is quite brave, and I haven't heard of anybody, you're the first person that I've heard of kind of taking this step forward into the realms of making a choice for yourself and enabling you to decide when you want to have children and if you want to have children by freezing your eggs.
I did it when I was 33. So I was sort of my 34th was coming up. And then a few things happened at sort of the same time. So obviously when you're that age, there's a lot of targeted advertising. So I was getting a lot of stuff coming up on social media about fertility and getting all that checked and things like that. So that was all coming up and in very much in my mind. And when you're approaching 35, you've got the whole geriatric mother thing in your mind that we talked about last time. And then I think what sort of swung it was there was something with Jennifer Aniston. I saw something, and she basically was talking about her fertility and the fact that she hadn't had kids and things. And she said something along the lines of, "Oh, I wish someone had shaken me when I was 33 and said, freeze your eggs? And I was 33 at the time, obviously. And then I was having a conversation late one night with a friend, and we just got onto the topic, and I was talking about the Jennifer Aniston thing, and then he basically said, well, maybe this is like me shaking you at 33. And then he said, basically, you might regret not doing it, but I can't imagine you'd ever regret doing it.
So you're 35 now, so it was 2 years ago. So your friend has said to you, almost giving you that shake. Were you nervous going into it? Like, what were your emotions? Because, you talk about it in quite practical terms, but
Yeah.
actually it's quite a big thing to go through, right? Like, what emotionally was kind of going on inside of you?
Yeah, I was trying to just think about it very practically. I didn't really, as you know, I didn't really tell anybody. I just thought I could. I thought it would be a lot sort of easier to just do it on the side, not talk about it, get it done, and it wouldn't sort of. If I didn't talk about it, then it wouldn't affect me that much. They sort of, as part of the whole process, they do a sort of counselling session with you online. So I did that, and essentially, the lady that I talked to there was saying it's kind of crazy to just not tell anybody. So I I ended up telling my family and a few people at the time after that. My overwhelming thing, and this is what I said to the lady at the time, was that it just felt quite unfair. Like it was, it's expensive. Obviously, that's the main difficulty I think a lot of people have being able to do it. It is very expensive, and it's you have to inject yourself a lot, and it just feels like it feels very sort of unfair. Like some people obviously have, babies just constantly, things just happen, and then I sort of thought, because I'm trying to go about things in essentially the right way, and not rush into having babies or doing something for the wrong reasons. I'm trying to do things correctly in a sense. I'm having to lose all this money, go through all this, yeah, I think that was sort of the thing that shocked me was how like just unfair it felt.
When you say unfair, do you mean it's because we shouldn't have to pay for it? It's a situation that you feel that the government should fund. We should be able to just freeze our eggs, not have to pay huge amounts of money, because it's a choice that we can have. And as women, you're obviously more fertile in your early 20s, and that's what we're told medically, right? We're told medically, women are born to have your highest peak between 20 and 30. As soon as you get past 30, your hormones start dipping and start changing. You don't produce that many eggs. We have issues with our ovaries, and all sorts of things kind of come up. Was it that made you that felt unfair, or was it the money side of things, the
No,
fact that you feel that the government should give us that choice rather than us having to pay for it?
I hadn't really thought about the money side of it, and that the government should pay for it in that sense. It was more just the fact that I know of people, and I know people who have gone about things in a different way. And I just remember people saying to me, people who would just say, why don't you just go out and
Meet
meet a
some.
random guy,
Okay.
and essentially just end up trapping someone. And I just didn't want to go about things in any kind of way of like that. So you think you're doing the right thing, for everybody involved, but ultimately it's that's harder. And yeah, so that's just sort of what felt unfair about it.
When you kind of went through your the choice of doing it? Were you thinking, because you just mentioned, oh, I could have gone out and slept with somebody and then, impregnated myself and then had a baby, right? I'm going to say it in real terms because I know you probably feel quite uncomfortable saying that, but that's what you're saying in effect. You're saying you could have just gone out, slept with someone, impregnated
Well, I don't know
yourself.
if I could have done, but
Well, I'm saying, but
some people do. Yeah.
some people do. Some people do. With that thought in your mind, have you frozen your eggs with the thought of, I want to have a baby, or I want to have the choice of having children when I feel that it's right for me?
Yeah, it's more about the having the option, because I think as well, I was maybe mentioning last time, there's just always this kind of like in the back of your mind that you're getting older, and if I do, I'm still now, I'm like, do I even want children? I don't know, but I thought that I could hopefully sort of get a little bit of the niggle of anxiety that was just constantly there. I thought it might just take that off my shoulders a little bit, and it has, I think. Just knowing that the option is there.
I guess we get to a certain point in our lives like you did, and you're thinking, well, I haven't had kids yet. What if I get to meet somebody and then I can't produce any eggs and I can't have a baby, and this is what I really want to do? So you've put the power back in yourself, and it's back in your control now. Ultimately, that's what you've done. You've made a choice to give yourself that control back and that power to say, actually, if I do meet somebody, when I meet someone, I'm now in no rush still, because we can have babies in our 40s. So you've given yourself breathing space, you've given yourself time, you've taken off that pressure of, I'm enjoying my job, I've got my career, I'm not going to go out there and just meet the next random guy and fall into a relationship that is going to be toxic because I feel like the clock's ticking. Because that was our conversation we had before, and
Yeah,
that was a
about just jumping
conversation,
into
yeah.
something.
And that was something that I did. My clock was ticking. You think, oh my God, everyone's getting married, having kids, I've got to meet someone. And then I ended up meeting somebody who wasn't right for me. And that's something that you clearly, you said in the previous interview, that's you didn't want that, you didn't want to go down that road. So what this has done is it's given you that space.
It's like I never thought it was gonna, make me feel 100%, anxiety free about the whole
Mm.
thing, but it has helped, like I say, just take a bit of the pressure off. So I would say, obviously, I was very lucky to be in a position where I could afford to pay for it. It
Mm.
is, yeah, it is. I think that's just a massive barrier for a lot of people. It is expensive, and also in a fortunate position that it went well. So I would personally tell anyone to go for it. Obviously, if they've got the resources and the drive to do it.
Was there any thought in your mind when you were going through the process of, I want to back out? Like, I'm doing the wrong thing? Or was it just, I just want to get this over and done with so I can move on with my life?
Yeah, yeah, because there was a big thing in me as well that wanted to do it before my 35th birthday. So I had thought like, oh, should I just leave it till January? But then I was like, no, I want to get it done because my birthday's in December. I want to get it done before I turn 35. No, 35. Before I turn 34, sorry. Just so that when I think about them, I think, oh, I did it when I was 33. For some reason, that just seemed important. As soon as no, I didn't think about backing out. As soon as I'd sort of gone right, press go, let's do it. And then yeah, I just wanted it to be over and done with, basically.
And did your mindset change at any point during the process of, oh, maybe I do want kids sooner than, or maybe I don't want them now?
Well, since it's a bit like I'm still, yeah. Again, I think I was saying last time as well. The older I get, the more I'm thinking, I don't think I don't think I could do it. But I don't know if that's just psychologically. It's just my brain preparing me for the fact that it might just never happen. So yeah, obviously that's another part of the expense, is that you're then paying for the freezing, like paying monthly costs for the freezing.
Okay, so
Um,
so 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 you pay for the process of having the treatment, you pay for the extraction. And sorry, I know it sounds really
extraction.
yeah, extraction. You pay for your eggs to be removed, I should
You
say.
do, yeah.
Yeah. And the little cat Mitchums, and then you then have to pay additionally for storage.
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
a
using those
monthly.
terms because it is quite practical. You're
Yeah.
paying for them to be kept frozen. Is there a
Mhm.
timeline of how long they can be frozen for before you can, like, is there like I know this sounds terrible. Is there like an end date?
No, no, there's not one where, so they apparently are just like they're frozen in time. So
Yeah.
I was sort of worried, saying like, if I got really old and decided to use it, and they were saying, no, it's the age of the egg is the the factor in how well it does. Um,
Okay.
as far as I know, I don't think there's a
A
time
limit.
limit where they're just not good anymore.
If you meet someone and you go on a date, at what point do you think you would tell them that what you've done? Like, is it
Um,
something that you've thought about? Like, if you go on a date, obviously, clearly on the first date, you're not going to go, by the way, I've had my eggs frozen. I can have
no,
children.
I probably wouldn't mention it until I had got to a stage with someone where we were talking about whether we wanted children.
Mm.
I don't think. Um,
But sometimes those conversations happen straight away. I was talking to a guy yesterday morning, who I met at an event I went to, and we were talking. He was telling me about these dates he was going on, and he said that it's crazy. He's going on like a second date with these women, and they're instantly saying, "Well, I want to have kids in 2 years' time, and this is what I want." And he's like, "What are you talking about? Like, we're on the second date, and you're telling me you want kids yet before we've even had a relationship."
no, well,
And
you
I was
can't
like,
mess
"That's
around anymore when you get to
but it's insane because you can't have a child. You can't think about having a child with someone is A, unless you're in love with them, and B, if they're the right person for you. And you're not going to know that after a second date. Do you know what I
No,
mean? It's it,
no,
and
but
to
then
be,
these are the people who are kind of, they 100% know they definitely want one, and they just don't have time to be hanging around. So they just need to check that someone's on the same page as them straight away, rather than, because you might easily go out, like, see someone for a year or two, and then they turn around and turns out they don't want a kid, and then you've wasted however long, and then you're starting from scratch again. So I suppose,
yeah.
from what I hear of people who date at my age compared to the younger people I know who go on dates, dating is very, very, very different when you get to this age. It's more like an interview of,
That's what he
you
was
know,
saying. It was exactly what he was saying, and I'm like,
yeah,
hold on a minute, that's not how life should be. I would never have thought of doing that, but then I guess if I look at realistically, I married at the first time when I was 30. So I was 30. And maybe if I went on a date now, if I was single, would I think about how I'd say? I think for me, I'm just a bit of a romantic. I want to fall in love with someone first. You had the treatment, you're pleased you had it. It's
yep,
taken that pressure off. It hasn't, you're still questioning whether or not you are going to have children, and if you meet someone, you'll make that decision as and when that happens. would
yep.
you would you consider having a child on your own ever at all if you didn't meet someone?
Yeah, well, I had kind of removed the option of meeting someone out of my mind to
Right.
think about this. It was all kind of like, and that stuff that I can have control over is that I can do this, and I have control over myself, obviously. So the thought of it was that if I don't meet someone, then I would just do it on my own. Um, Again, that's kind of scaring me more the older I get, because I see people with with kids, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't think I could do that on my own. But that was my main thought, is that that's what would happen with these eggs, is that I ended up
Right.
just using them for
To
a with a donor,
Right.
basically.
Okay. So your thought process was, I'm going to have a child on my own, and I want to have the option when the time's right. It wasn't about necessarily meeting the right person and it being too late for you. It was more about having control of your life and what your decisions are, and
Yeah.
bringing up a child on your own to have that choice.
Yeah, yeah, essentially, which I think is the a bit of a controversial part of it. I think there are some people that feel that the whole thing isn't shouldn't be allowed. But I think that there's people that think that about IVF and all sorts, because obviously it's interfering with nature, or but the technology's there, and people that desperately want to have babies should be the ones having babies, right? Actually, one of my main things was that I was going to say was, if you're going to do it, then don't then definitely tell someone. Don't try and do it without anyone knowing, because it's kind of impossible, and then it just adds an extra stress onto the whole process. And the evening after the extraction,
Yeah.
I think that was actually the worst part of the whole thing. Um, so I just wanted to just not warn, but I had forgotten
Because
about that.
sure.
It was painful. It was really painful.
Okay, so it
Um,
was more painful than it wasn't the emotional side, it was the actual physical pain that you went through
Physically,
afterwards.
yeah, yeah. Although I told them about that afterwards, and they were quite shocked. So maybe that was just out of the ordinary for me, um, but yeah, it
That was
that was
painful for you.
that was painful. Yeah.
Sure. Are you gonna give yourself a cut-off point? If you haven't met anybody, if you, are thinking about having a child on your own, do you have a cut-off point for yourself?
I think, well, they essentially, I said to, again, I said to the nurse, I think it was at the beginning, if, even if I met so say I did this at 33, if I met someone at 35, would you still say I should use the younger eggs? And she said, go like, just sort of, if you met someone, then do it naturally. And then when you get to 40, if you then met someone, then use the frozen ones, basically.
Right. Okay. You've got
Um,
kind of like 40 as a cut-off point for you if you were gonna have a baby on your own, and if you met someone after 40, then you would consider, because you're with somebody who would then, in effect, be partnering
yeah.
you and you would share the responsibility. When you first went through your whole experience of, freezing your eggs, you chose not to tell anybody, and now here you are, sharing it very publicly on this platform. What for you has changed?
I think that I the reason that I didn't tell anybody to begin with was just a bit of a silly reason. I don't know why. I just didn't want to tell anybody. I think I just thought it would be, just something that I could just do without anyone knowing, and then just forget it was done, which I kind of did. But then, like I say, obviously, had this counselling session, and she was like, "This is it's like it's quite hard. It would be a lot easier for you if you did just tell somebody." And I ended up telling. So I knew somebody that had done IVF twice, and they randomly happened to phone me the evening before I had the extraction. And then I just sort of ended up just coming out with it, obviously, just because of the timing of it. And then, yeah, from that point, I just sort of was like, actually, it felt quite nice to just like talk about it. And then the further down the line we've got, I have just thought, why why would I be? It was less about actively keeping it a secret. It was more just the fact that it's not something that you particularly walk into work and be like, everyone, I'm doing this. It was just, it's not,
Yeah.
it wasn't a secret. It was just when it
Finding the
comes up
right
now.
time. Finding the
Yeah,
right time with a
yeah,
conversation. I think I might have mentioned it to you that I knew somebody who was thinking about it, and you went, "Oh, I've done it," and I was like, "What?"
well, I remember you asked me if I would ever consider doing it, and I said,
Oh,
"Oh,
that's
I did
why.
do it." And that's actually that's I think that's happened a few times now, and then I'm like, "Well, I don't like, it's not a secret. I'm not gonna lie and say I haven't done it." So if it comes up, then I talk about it. Um, and then also if someone's thinking about doing it and they wanted to talk to somebody who had done it, then I'm very happy to be that person.
Listen, thank you so much for sharing. As I said, I really wanted to chat to you when I found out about it. I wasn't one of those people that knew when you were going through the experience, and I wasn't sure if you did want to share it. So thank you for doing that. And at least it's something for me to discuss and share with my kids, as it should do with anyone listening, any mums listening with their kids, that they do have a choice now. There is an option. Yes, it is a huge cost, which is a bit of a heavy burden, but there is a choice now that you can make, and you can get control back of your life, rather than and actually, if I think about it, how much does it cost to divorce somebody, right,
That's
with a kid
true.
and being a single parent? Let's think about that. So
Yeah.
cost of meeting the wrong person, having a child, because I know how much my divorce cost me 10 grand, and that was back in the day, right? So if I think about that £10,000 that was spent, that could be, and I think that with IVF it cost about 10 grand. So I'm presuming the whole process would be about 20 grand.
Well, the freezing, I actually don't know how much it ended up costing in total, but I think it was around 5 or 6 grand, the
Okay,
freezing.
fine. Yeah.
In
Yeah. So
like at the end of it.
if you do
Um,
think about the cost of going through that process, is the same cost as you could
yeah,
potentially suffer with having a divorce. But this could be an opportunity for you to have it with the right partner at the right time to avoid all of those.
yeah,
And
and I think, like, even just for that bit of peace of mind,
yeah,
it's, it's it's worth it, I think. Just literally just to lift that burden just that little
yeah,
bit. And it's not
excellent.
something that you can just say, "Oh, I'll just do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. When I've got the money, I'll do it later." Like, you've just you've got to
Do
get
it.
it done. Yeah, got to just do
Yeah.
it.
Talking to a very dear friend of mine, Kat, about her journey, but a very, very personal journey, um, has definitely got me thinking in terms of, sharing this episode with as many people women as possible, because I think it not only affected me as a parent, to think that I could share this with my kids and say, look, there is no time limit on life. Like, you don't have to be in a rush to meet someone to have a child. You do have options. It's about empowering women to take control back and having the choices. So this conversation for me is a conversation that needs to be shared. It needs to be talked about. I think it was very brave of Kat coming on here to talk about her journey, but also she shared with us that, well, actually, there are people having these conversations already. So why don't we just encourage more women to be a lot more open about the conversations and talk about them, because it will help them work out their futures. Because it's always good to have a chat with your friend to say, well, if you went through this, how would you feel? Like, talk about the emotional side before you go and do it. So yeah, so I'm really pleased that Kat shared it with us, and I'm very honoured that she did share her journey with us. And I just want everyone to share this with as many women as possible. And if anybody has a story that they would like to share with us and with the community, just the way Kat has done, or any of my other guests, you can get in touch with me. The email address is therealstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to email us. We can just have a conversation, explore whether or not you do want to share your story. This is about empowering women. This is not to throw anyone under the bus. If you have a story to share, maybe you're curious about whether or not you'd like to share your story, just email us because we can have a conversation with you. If you are interested in taking control back of your life, then you can join me for my next episode of Real Women's Stories. Sister.